Okay, here we go. Okay, today is a very, very important class. First class of Parshat of season 4. So we're going to start off with the last Parshias of the book of Bamidbar. But we're not really going to speak about, we are going to speak about the Parsha, but the reason why it's set up this way is because we're now in the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks between the fast of the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. We know it's a sad time.
This is the second week.
This would be the second week. Thursday is going to be the conclusion of this. No, now we're in the first week.
Oh, we're still in the first week.
Well, because the fast of the 17th of Tammuz was on Thursday. Right. Well, yeah. Okay.
But I didn't know when it started.
Yeah. So it started.
I thought it was Shabbos.
It's no. It's exactly 3 weeks from the fast of 17th of Tammuz to the fast, which was Thursday. So now we're in the first week.
Okay.
So the question that we're going to talk about is how does someone who's going through a hard time, who's fallen on hard times, or someone who feels like he's in the pits, how does he pull himself out of that situation? That you can understand how this would connect to current timing, current events. So now you could say just be positive, but everything is going negative, then you feel that's being naive. So is optimism naivete? Is it stupidity? Is there something to it? Right? So so you have some people, for example, went through the Holocaust, for example, and they remain positive. How can a person remain positive? Or people ask me, or other Chabad rabbis, when we speak about Mashiach, how can somebody, Michael J. is a gentleman, he's knocking on the door. What are you? Only a stranger knocks at the rabbi's door. You've been here enough to know.
Okay. So
my brother-in-law.
Must be a stranger too.
My brother-in-law, he comes in, then knocks.
Nice to meet you. We're going to give you a warning.
Exactly. He opens the door. Boom, boom. I'm here. I'm like.
They got his schnapps in his bottle and he leaves us water.
Exactly. So we believe in Mashiach. And you could say, how can we believe in Mashiach? How can we believe that a better time's coming? And now it's easier, life is easy. But we have a precedent that Jews always believed in Mashiach. Even in the most miserable times, there's a song that we have a tradition came from the times of the Holocaust. That the Jews were singing on the way to the gas chambers. They were singing Ani Mamin, we believe in the coming of Mashiach. Like where did that come from? How do we get that mindset? So we're going to be for an American boy, the Europeans would call the Americans chocolate kids, because in Europeans, Americans had it easy. Life was chocolate. Right? Like you ever see the animated film Fievel Comes to America? The mouse, Fievel Comes to America. They made an animated film. So is it Fievel goes to America? Huh?
The mouse.
Yeah, Fievel the mouse.
Yes.
Fievel goes to America. So there's a line in the movie where in America there's no cats, and the streets are paved with cheese. Right? It's because Fievel is a European immigrant, right? And they come and they come to find out that. Oh, come in. Hey, how you doing? So for an American to come and speak about keeping a positive attitude is very easy. But we're going to look at commentary, from the Rebbe and from other people to see how do we keep a positive attitude. Now, just to give the Rebbe's expertise on the matter, so to speak. The Rebbe was born in 1902. The Rebbe survived pogroms, World War I, World War II, communism. He escaped Nazism. The Rebbe knows what it means. His father was arrested and killed by the communists. The Rebbe knew what it means to suffer. But we always find the Rebbe thinking about Mashiach. The question is, where do we get that from? Okay, so because it is a Parsha class, we're going to connect it to the portion. But let's first speak about why it's a sad time. So we'll look at page 4. We're now in the 3 weeks leading up to the fast of Tisha B'Av. What is the fast of Tisha B'Av? There are five bad things. Again, this was written in the Code of Jewish Law. More bad things happened, unfortunately, since then. But these are the 5 bad things mentioned in the Gemara. And unfortunately, like I said, many things happened otherwise. So number 1, what happened was the Jews were decreed to spend 39 more years in the desert, a total 40 years. Number 2, the first temple was destroyed. The second temple was destroyed 500 years later, or 490 years later. Beitar, and in the Bar Kokhba rebellion in the year 120, around the year 120, there was a 6-year rebellion, 6 or 9, I think 6-year rebellion. Beitar was a great fortified city with I think over 100,000 inhabitants, which was a very, very big number. And on the 9th of Av, the city fell, and the Romans killed all its inhabitants. By the way, the city fell because of a Jewish insider, just by the way. During these 3 weeks, all the suffering the Jewish people have is we bring upon ourselves. That's why we have to work on Ahavas Yisrael, especially during these 3 weeks. Because in these 3 weeks, the fact that we are our own worst enemy is magnified, unfortunately. And lastly, after the fall of Beitar, the Roman Emperor Hadrian wanted the Jewish people to get it through their mind they weren't going back to Jerusalem, so he had the Temple Mount plowed. I mean, when the temple was destroyed, it wasn't gone. The building was in ruins, but the building was still there. But Hadrian said, I want the Jews to get it through their mind that there ain't going to be no more temple. So they literally lowered the Temple Mount by 50 feet. They plowed, and so when you look at the Temple Mount today, it's actually lower 50 feet. Now other things happened on the 9th of Av. The expulsion from Spain, 1492, happened on the 9th of Av. World War I started on the 9th of Av, which led to World War II. The first deportation from the Warsaw Ghetto happened on the 9th of Av. There's more recently Gush Katif. Remember Gush Katif, the settlement that the Israeli government and their everlasting genius decided to give away to the Palestinians, because they thought if we give them a settlement with infrastructure and greenhouses and everything else, then they'll be happy. This was, I think, in the summer of 2007. So they went and they removed all the Jewish inhabitants. What day was it? The 9th of Av. I mean, it's a very moving video. They're sitting there and it's still crying, saying, tell them, singing. It's devastating to watch it. You could Google Gush Katif, Gush, Katif. Yeah, you right. So we're in a very, very bad time, sad time. It's very hard to be optimistic. In fact, today in Shul, some guy said, "You're not allowed to sing." We're talking about in Shul. You're not allowed to sing. I said, "Vush, where does it say you can't sing? You can't listen to music, live music, but you can't sing. It's a sad time." I said, "I know it's a sad time, but you still have to serve Hashem with joy." But in general, it's a sad time. If you remember, we announced in Shul, you can't buy new clothing, you can't go to concerts. So no going to heavy metal concerts. But right, I know you're into that.
I had tickets. What am I gonna do now?
Yeah. I know.
Can't go see Ozzy.
Sorry.
Taylor Swift said she'll buy him back.
Okay.
There you
She's
go.
not heavy metal.
Yeah, exactly.
She's pop.
So if you just want to get an idea of what depression looks like, not depression, but sadness, I should say. It looks like, look what Elie Wiesel. Has everyone read over here Elie Wiesel's book, Night? You should read the book. You should read the book. It's like 100 pages, 150.
Which book?
Night.
Elie Wiesel?
Yeah. So it's a very, very powerful book. It's a short book. Anyway, he wrote an article in 1979. You see page 5. He writes, 35 years later, a survivor of the Holocaust because I guess it was a memorial, and he was there Tisha B'Av. He says we were welcomed by a dozen congregants, including 2 American rabbis. Service was held in a small dilapidated side room because the main show was being repaired. Following custom, we sat down and we read the book of Jeremiah. So in the beginning of the book of Lamentations, it says, "Eicha yashva badad." Woe that Jerusalem sits desolate, all by itself. And he compares Jerusalem to Warsaw. Warsaw was the Jerusalem of Europe. There were 300,000 Jews living in Poland before the war. Warsaw had, crazy, 50. I think the number is 56,000 in just in the city. I mean, the crazy part of it is that the success of the Nazis is that they went from being Jewish to zero. They went from, if you went to Poland, now we'll talk about it a little later. Now there's a little bit of a Chabad presence, but until 20 years ago, it was as if it was never there. So he says, what's left of Warsaw? Talmudic schools, cultural clubs, Hasidic centers. It says a few meager candles which wax drips down tears of agony. The Jews of Warsaw are no longer in Warsaw. They're in Treblinka, 2 hours away. They stand at attention, silently accusing. What are you going to say? Another Kaddish? Another one. How many prayers can one say for an entire world? How many candles must one light for mankind? Not to betray ourselves by betraying the dead. We can only open ourselves to their silent memories and listen. So he says, we can understand. You read Eli Wiesel, and you read what he went through. And Eli Wiesel, he's a vision that's a chassid. He wasn't a guy who grew up, not religious. He grew up religious. He grew up frum. And he went through it, and his father died, I think, 2 weeks before liberation. Right before liberation. And the famous picture of the prisoners laying on the bunks, and the guy standing, leaning on a pole. It's one of the famous Holocaust pictures. He's one of the guys in the bunks. What do you want to call them? On planks over there. So you can see where's there room for optimism. But that being said, go to Warsaw today. There's kosher, there's shuls, there's schools, there's mikvahs. And again, I don't like arguing this point because this is a very, very dangerous thing to say. What I'm about to say, I'm going to say it because people say it, not because it's my personal opinion, but from the Holocaust, from the ashes of the Holocaust, we have Israel. Some people have gone as far to say it was worth it. I've heard some people say that. Now, I think. So, guys, if you're watching on camera and you hear kids in the background, it's because they can see from the background. Our background is not like the previous classes. I'm home. So, although I'm dressed professional, but I'm really a dad.
You have shorts and fuzzy
Exactly. I'm wearing my SpongeBob pajamas on the bottom. Do you remember that? Zoom? It was very funny. CNN or BBC was interviewing someone, and the guy was like a big and he was home because it was COVID, and all of a sudden the door opens and a kid runs in, and the nanny crawls in after him trying to get the kid. In the background, it was.
There's been several of those.
Yeah. It was very funny. Okay, so let's see how do we rise, how do we overcome, how do we come back. Let's turn to this week's Parsha. This week is a double Parsha. This week is Matot-Masei or Matot-Masei, and we're going to focus on the second Parsha. The second Parsha is Masei. The word Masei means journeys. Masei means journeys.
Journeys?
Yeah, journeys.
Plural.
Yeah, Masei, journeys. See in text number 3, page 7, it says these are the journeys of the Jewish people when they left Egypt until they got the land of Israel. But if you look in the Torah, you don't find the route they took. You find where they stopped. If you're going from Pembroke Pines and you're going to West Palm Beach, and I say journeys, so that means these are your journeys. How'd you go? 95, Turnpike, right? If I say these are the journeys from here to New York, and you tell me the hotel you stopped in here and here, that's not the journeys, that's the encampments. It's not like there's not a word for encampment. It could have said these are the encampments. Or it doesn't even include it in the word, in the verse. It just says the journeys and then the list of encampments. And it's interesting, he uses the word journeys, doesn't use the word travel. Doesn't say they travel.
It's enjoy.
Huh?
It's for enjoy something. It is not enjoy.
Oh, so obviously there's a difference. Every word in the Torah is important. This is one of the more famous teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. You see, text 4a. The Baal Shem Tov didn't write much. A lot of what we have in teachings of the Baal Shem Tov is based on what his students wrote down. So this on page 4a, you see Rabbi Chaim Ephraim of Sudilkov, the Sofer, right? In a book called Degel Machne Ephraim. I never knew which city he's called after. I just know we know him as Degel Machne Ephraim.
It's not
No. That's the name. That's the name of his book. Let's not get caught up in the name of his book. So in text 4a, he said, I heard from the Baal Shem Tov that keeping in mind that the Torah is a guide for every single person. So these 42 journeys, this is the story of every man, every person. I don't mean man. Actually, a guy asked me yesterday. Says the Torah says in the beginning, God created man, and God made a mistake, and then He created woman. I said, it doesn't say He created man. It said He created mankind. And it says when He created mankind, He created male and female. So you mistranslated, right? So when I say man, I don't mean man as in male. He, she, they, them. I'm talking about mankind, everybody. Okay. So this is the journey of every single person. You start from Mitzrayim, and and the end of your life is, God willing, the Holy Land, the Eretz Yisrael. And in the 42 journeys, you have ups and downs, right? In the 42 journeys, the Jewish people had some very good times, splitting of the sea. They had splitting of the sea. Then you had another trip, which was the giving of the Torah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Roblox?
Okay, no, go to the other room, play.
I don't say Roblox.
So you should know that each journey is holy and pure. That means God has a plan for you, and God doesn't say, "Listen, you start off point A when you're born, and you end off point B, where your soul passes. What you do in the middle, I don't really care. How you get there, I don't care. If I tell you, let's meet, do I ask you how you got here? I don't care. I just want you to be here. Right? Ask you how you came. Well, you only have one way to come to the house. Come 178th, right? Right? But Michael J, you can come different ways. Do I care? I don't care.
You still have to make the left turn into
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Why 42, not 43 or 40? There are more convenient numbers. More.
In Yiddish, it's called a kasha femaisa. A question on the story. But not coincidentally, 42 is also has to do with the name of Hashem. But I don't know. I don't know if that's why it's 42, huh?
That's the answer. An answer.
I don't know if that is an answer. Just a coincidence. I don't know. But there were 42. Now, obviously, there's a reason specifically why 42 didn't just end up happening that way. But I'm not sure. Okay, it's a good question. And how do we find our life in this in these 42? So Shimon Sefer, in a book called Torah's Moshe, he doesn't go through all 42. You're back. He goes through a few of them. Look at page 4, text 4b. Look at text 4b, and he uses the language, the grammar. And he says, for example, there's one place called Kivrot Atava, the burial of lust. Our job, we are all challenged with things we desire. Some people it's chocolate cake, some people it's fancy cars, some people it's eating chocolate cake in fancy cars. Right? Everybody has their thing. Like the Gemara says, every human being wants. It's a question of fill in the blank. So one of the challenges, we gotta bury that desire. Not everything you want you get. There's a line in the Medrash or the Gemara. I forgot what the percentage it says, that a person dies like 0.0000001%. He gets what he wants. Because our whole life we're wanting stuff. You don't remember how much stuff you wanted because we're non-stop wanting stuff. That's the definite. I mean, that's the next class, in the tiny class. So for 1 second. So the lesson in Kivrus Hatava is we have to bury our desires. And there's another one, Chatzerot. We have to realize that this world is a chatzer, a courtyard, and we have to prepare ourselves before you walk in. And then there's another one, Chareda, and it's settled in Makilo, unity. Because if we are unified, then we're at peace. And then all these different cities, the names, they're not just random names. These names signify the mission of man, of what we're supposed to do in life. When we're overcome with a challenge, what do we do? How do we overcome it? This is the Baal Shem Tov's life, Baal Shem Tov's lesson. So what comes out is like this. If you come to a situation and you're faced with a desire to do something you shouldn't, right? Unhealthy, illegal, immoral, right? For example, the only reason why I'm not keeping that t-shirt because it doesn't fit me.
What?
I don't want that.
What did you say?
That's the only reason I'm not keeping that t-shirt is because it doesn't fit me. Size medium. I mean, maybe I was a size medium a long time ago. So, but the point is, if you come to a situation where you have the opportunity to do something you shouldn't, whatever that shouldn't is, and you don't, right? So it's not just an event. It's a learning point. And it helps you in future challenges. You can tap back on. So in your journey through life, it's a momentous occasion. So it's not just an event. And that's what it means, journeys. The journey, it helps us learn from every event in our life. You wanted to ask something?
Yeah. Is it bad to do or have what we desire?
Okay, it's a separate question. The answer is yeah. Simple answer, yeah. Because most of the time, what you desire is not good. Unless you're a tzaddik, this is the next class, and what you desire is good. Now, usually the answer is yeah. Now, okay, but that being said, doesn't mean what doing good can be pleasurable. Again, this is not for this time, but basically the idea is your job is to do good. Sometimes it's pleasurable, sometimes it's painful, but your job is to do good. Like we find in this week's Parshat, I was learning with Josh, this week's Parshat, the Jewish people have to do some very nice things. But God commanded them to do it, so you got to do it. Right? Like next 2 weeks we're going to fast Tisha B'Av. Not nice, not eating for 25 hours. Right? You got headaches and migraines and this and that, but you got to do it. God said do it, you do it. So this explains why the word journey is there, not travel. Because travel really means I'm traveling from here to New York. JetBlue, United, should take JetBlue. By the way, remember that disaster story when I went to New York, I couldn't get back? To add insult to injury, I got I got a speeding ticket. When I was there, I was going 37 miles an hour.
You were going through a school zone.
No. In New York City, the speed limit is 25. And I thought I was being very vigilant. I guess I was on the phone and Waze them. But just to add they'll
Salt to the room.
kick me when I'm down. My sister sent me a picture of a $50 fine. So when you go,
Driving her car?
yeah.
That's what happens.
I mean, I know
I think it
you.
was from Lynn.
I know you think I'm rich, but I don't have a car waiting for me in New York, rolls, to pick me up. So the idea when you travel, I don't really care how you got here. Traveling really means you're going from point A to point B, and your idea is to really get to the point. So let's say, for example, right, two people come to a rest stop or hotel. One family, their final stop is Orlando. So they unpack, they're relaxing. Other family, they're continuing driving to North Carolina or whatever it is. So the purpose of their stop is to freshen up and to rejuvenate and get whatever they need in order to continue on. That's the way a Jew is supposed to look at every single event in their life. Our job is always to keep moving. We never stop. In fact, the previous Rebbe said, I think his father said, a Yid is a mahalach. A Jew is always going, always moving. We never stop and rest. That means you're satisfied. The Rebbe once had this problem with retirement. The idea of retirement is, I reach a certain age, I sit there and wait. Not dead. All right, I might as well get breakfast, something like that. He was saying, the idea that you're not productive anymore, it's nonsense. What do you mean? Every day you have to be productive. Yeah, maybe you're productive in a different way than when you were 40. You're not climbing up towers from Motorola, right? Maybe you're productive differently, but you have to be productive. A Jew always has to be, a Jew never stops. A Jew is always moving. Look at text number 5. The word travel is limited to the narrow act of moving one's legs, namely, uprooting from one location to another. It is entirely possible that despite moving to a new location, one maintains a psychological attachment to the previous location. Because I'm traveling from my house to Orlando, but I know I'm going to go back to my house. What's going on?
Brown is our type.
Oh.
But when you journey, it's not about here. It's about like going to Israel one way, right? Making Aliyah to Israel. You leave behind New Jersey. You're thinking about every minute on the plane. You're thinking about one step closer to. Although you're in sardine class and the food is miserable, right? Whatever, and the bathroom is made for people that are 5'2" and 100 pounds. You walk in there right? But it's all part of the journey. So now we can understand the Rebbe says why the Torah uses the word journeys and doesn't talk about the encampment, because the idea is you're climbing and you're going from point A to point B. That doesn't mean in your journey there won't be discomforts along the way, right? Like flying or like driving, right? Yeah, you drive for a while, your legs get tired and your back gets tired, and I always when I'm going on a road trip with the kids, for some reason I'm eating the whole time. I don't know why. And at the end of the day, you feel all nauseous and bloated, and you're hungry for real food, but you're not hungry because you ate garbage food, right?
That's part of the travel.
That's part of the travel. If daddy's back doesn't hurt, then it ain't part of. But the point is, journeys. Ron Lazar, could you answer him, please? Journeys doesn't mean that there's no discomfort. Journeys means that every single step you're going closer and closer to your destination.
No.
Look at text number 6. It says, our ancestors viewed each encampment not only as an achievement, but also as a prelude to the next journey. The very fact that they would journey forth from this place made the encampment a launching point, because they realized that my job is to get from here to there. So let's say, for example, let's cut out the desert journeys from Egypt to Mount Sinai. They understood that they were leaving Egypt to go to Mount Sinai. They didn't They didn't go straight from Egypt to Mount Sinai. I think, if I remember correctly, they made 7 or 10 stops on the way, 7 stops on the way. I don't remember exactly. It's tomorrow's Chumash. It's been a year, right? They made 7 stops on the way, but they kept in mind. They kept in mind that every stop is bringing us closer to Sinai. So for any questions, by the way, what we're saying? Well, I know what we're saying. Not something else, Ruben.
Yeah, but as they're traveling the 40 years, a good number of them are also thinking, well, we're not actually getting there. We're going to die.
Oh, very good question, and we're going to talk about that. There's actually a text dealing with that very soon. All right, very okay. Yeah.
Now I remember that question.
Okay, go ahead.
So I remember in the book of Joshua that at that point we were none of us were circumcised because there was no time to do that.
No, that's not, there was. What do you mean there's no time? We had 39 years. What do you mean there's no time?
No.
We didn't because they felt it was dangerous for the kids in the desert. That's why. Yeah.
So would that mean that we were happy and we were less pure than
Less pure, I guess, but they weren't obligated to circumcise the children. What are you showing me? I can't see.
You're not getting some beer.
Good. All right, everybody should be here, right?
That's for the next class.
That's for the next class, exactly. Next video. So the idea is like this. So everything we said is beautiful when you're traveling on the road and there's gas and there's no flat tires and you have your food and your hotel has your reservation and there's no count. That's when life is moving perfectly. But everybody knows, like the old saying, no one goes in the way they come out. You come out all perfect and smooth. You're born perfect, smooth and great. Right, exactly. No one goes in. No one ends their life unscathed. Everybody has something to put up with. Like they say in Yiddish, everyone has their peck. Everyone has something to deal with. There's no such thing as no one has nothing.
What was the Yiddish phrase?
Every person has their peckle. A peckle is a package. Like their burden. Their burden. Everyone has their burden. Everybody. Some people have money. They don't have health. So everybody has their thing. Everybody. And if someone tells you they haven't, they're an idiot, or they're lying, or they're delusional. So, yeah. Yes, please. So the question is. So the question is, how do we view our setbacks? How do we view the harsh times? So let's talk about something I hate, right? Red lights.
You like them for the other people.
Yeah. Listen, as long as you're going in the same direction as me, you can have a green light too.
I prefer the green one.
To me, and especially if you have to go somewhere, red lights are a tremendous waste of time. Right? I have a policy. The red lights don't apply from 12 to 5 a.m. 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. red lights need not apply. I mean, if you're in New York City, Pembroke Pines, I mean, some of the streets we're driving now didn't have red lights. All of a sudden they decided to put up red lights. At 3 o'clock in the morning.
In other words, you want all the lights to be green all the time.
Yeah, I saw it in the movie once. I'm kidding.
Realize that you can't have a
I'm kidding around.
collision effect.
But the idea is, right, you're going from point A to point B, and you want to get there, and you want to get to that point. What's stopping you? A red light. You think that, you know, and you're cursing, you know, so a woman has something to do. They have makeup to put on, you know, they're busy.
They can do it when we're driving.
Right.
They do.
Right? But, you know, see, now we have our phones to check our email. What did we do in the old days by red lights?
No, we listened
Right
to
about-
a novel.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you looked at the other guy and you cursed the other guy.
No, we listened to books.
Oh, really? All right.
So for a red light, sometimes it's good because we get into it.
Really? So, one second. So we can look at a red light as it's a pain, right? But the red light gives us the chance to, when you're driving, you have to focus. Chaya, if you're watching this, please. My daughter. So the red lights give us a chance to relax, because you ever realize when you drive for a long time, you come back and you're tired and I didn't do anything.
Yes.
I was just driving. But when you're driving, you have to focus. It gives you a chance to relax. Also gives chance to flow. So you could look at red lights as the biggest pain and it stopped you and it was everything else. But also gives you a chance to rest and to engage. Let's say you're going the wrong way. And a red light gives you a chance to realize, again, now we have Waze. There's a chance where you didn't have a machine in your cars.
Google Maps.
Or Google, right?
What car?
All right. In the olden days, it was your wife told you you're going the wrong way. Even if you're going the right way, you're going the wrong way, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. So to say,
I don't have that problem. Mine is usually asleep after about.
so the same is true. The same is true with life. So a person has to go to the mechanic, right? Person has to go to the hospital, emergency surgery, a leg or something else. You could look at it a person could look at it as a terrible event, or they could look at it as something. It's a learning lesson. So the following three texts are three different ways to look at setbacks. The first one is very recent. It's from a journalist. His name is Brett Hull. No, it's not Brett Hull. Benjamin Hull. Benjamin Hull, if you remember, this happened in the beginning of the Ukraine-Russia war. So when you say Ukraine-Russia, you can say war. When you say Russia-Ukraine, it's invasion. It all depends on how you... because I said that, this video will not be available in Russia. I'm losing my Russian audience. So what happened to him, he was with his colleague and they were hit by a missile or something. His colleague died and he lost both feet. He was burned. Let's see what happened to him. He lost an eye, an arm, a leg, both feet, severe burns over his body. And he writes like this. Text number 7, page 12 in the book. I think it's important when you're feeling low. There are many times that I was really at the bottom, that you have to know that there is good on the other side. And if you work hard, and if you dedicate yourself to getting somewhere and you don't stop trying to achieve that, you will get there. So no matter how painful something is, no matter how hard it is, if you want to, you're going to get there. And he remembers thinking that I'm going to get past. So one way is to think, this is an obstacle, and I'm going to get over it no matter what. The second way to look at it is, you see text number 8, Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl, anyone ever read Man's Search for Meaning? By Viktor Frankl?
I downloaded it.
Oh. I saw it in the library once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be our next book.
Exactly. Right. I say, behind the book spines over here is really alcohol, beer, and poker chips.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So Viktor Frankl went through the Holocaust, and he wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning, how you could find meaning even in the worst times. So you see text number 8. I'm going to summarize. A guy comes to him, how he's all depressed, how his wife died. And he asks the guy, if you would have died first, how would your wife take it? Well, she would have been devastated. She would have suffered. So he says, so because she died first, it spared her from suffering. So by your sacrifice. So the guy was happy. So Viktor Frankl's view is not only we could overcome it, that every experience is to learn from. Yeah, it's bad, but we can learn from it. We can grow from it. Meaning, if Viktor Frankl had not gone through the Holocaust, we wouldn't have his book. He wouldn't have been able to teach us everything he taught us. Yeah.
So always looking at the bright side. And is there
Always
also
look
something?
at the bright
I remember that
light.
being happy is also like a source of blessing.
I think that flew over you, yeah? You don't know where that's from.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
But I do remember that the reason why a man was only really exposed on the third trial was because he was not happy at that time.
Man was exposed on the
Haman.
what?
Haman.
Haman was
So Esther.
exposed on. No, give me the background. Give me the. Haman was exposed on the
Esther
third
told-
month. He was
Yes.
hung on the third month.
On the last. So it was Esther waited until Haman was not happy to tell Ahasuerus of Haman's plan, because
Esther waited for Haman to be unhappy. Where do you see Haman was unhappy?
because he had to carry the Mordechai.
Oh, yeah.
No, but that was said in. But no, yes, it coincided with that. But her plan already started before. That happened on the second day of the feast. She already invited. The first time. The first time when she invited him, she had no idea what was going to happen. That Haman.
But she saw that he was happy, so she didn't say.
No, I don't. Haman. Esther had nothing to do with Haman.
Okay.
Esther had nothing to do. Yeah. We're confusing. I'm not sure how you got there, but let's put that aside because I want to. We have another class after this. Let's keep it. Let's keep it straight. Okay. The third one is the third idea over here, and the Rebbe said, not that we overcome suffering, not that we learn from suffering. The suffering itself is a source of growth. And the Rebbe said like this. Look at text number 9. To explain, the only purpose of descending into dark experience of exile is the phenomenal redemption that will follow. It is a fall for the purpose of subsequent climb. That means what we perceive as suffering is really serves to serve a positive building block. It is only by falling into darkness that you can climb to dizzying heights, even higher than the level in which you fell. It is like the intensity of light experience after emerging from darkness. So not only is suffering survivable, not only is it meaningful, suffering actually helps us. Because the idea is when you find true meaning in the suffering, that means Hashem didn't destroy the temple and kick us out of the land of Israel just because he was upset. And he says, go to your room, guys, get out of my face until I calm down and then you can come back. No, that's not it. Remember, Hashem is good. Hashem is God. Hashem is perfect. And a synonym of perfection is productivity. Waste is bad. So God is the definition of productivity. One of his definitions, although he's undefinable. Right? So everything that Hashem does is productive. Even when we perceive it and we experience it, and not only perceive it, we experience it as suffering, the fact of the matter is, it's productive. So I'll go into Michael J's question, what was the productivity in 40 days, the 40 years in the desert? So Chassidus answers like this. This is from the Orach Chaim. Kabbalah explains that the desert represents, what's a desert? A desert is a place absence of life. Right? What's synonymous with life? Torah. Torah says, Eitz Chaim hi. Torah is the tree of life. The desert, absence of life, absence of godliness, absence of Torah. The job the Jewish people had in the desert wasn't just to be there and wait. Okay, guys, we have 39 years. No, the idea was, think about it, by the way. They learned Torah the whole day. They served God the whole day. They reached incredible heights. In fact, there was never a greater generation than the one that spent 40 years in the desert. Could you imagine having Moshe as your teacher? Having zero responsibilities as far as materialism goes? What do they do the whole day? They learn Torah. That generation was called the generation of knowledge. There was never a generation as great in scholarship and observance as that generation. Why? By the way, it's appropriate at this point to fill it in the story. I've used the story before, but it's hey Ron, here comes it. to say the story that a guy once came to, I forgot which Hasidic Rebbe, and said, I don't understand, the Jewish people are so miserable. Right here. The Jewish people are so miserable. How come they keep appearing in the Torah? These guys are a bunch of wicked people. So the rabbi told his students, listen here, punk. From their misdeeds, a Torah was written. I doubt anyone's writing a Torah from your mitzvahs, right? Sometimes you look at the book, these guys are a bunch of bums. They weren't a bunch of bums, by the way. Yeah, it's true, they made some mistakes. That's true. But what did they do during the 40 years? It said, look at the first paragraph, text 10. The Jews traveled, page 15. The Jews traveled through the desert to collect the sacred sparks that resided in this wasteland, otherwise inhabited by snakes, vipers, and scorpions. God marched them through desolate wilderness to liberate the holy sparks from imprisonment. That means their job was to bring godliness in a place that was absence of godliness. That was their job. Now the Jewish people can go into Israel. Because to be Jewish in the land of Israel and you're in your holy place, that's great. What about when life challenges you and you're not in Borough Park? You're not in Jerusalem. You're not in Bnei Brak. What happens to your Jewish observance then? Or what happens when you don't get kosher food on the airplane? Well, God, if you want me to eat kosher, then or that kosher. I guess it's pork for you know. Like I sent me a picture like pork and cheese. I said, what's the problem? Pork or the meat and cheese?
Meat and cheese. You can't do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So one of the reasons of why we were in the desert is because that is a place that can be purified and made holy.
Yeah.
Did we make the desert holy?
Yeah. It's not the desert itself. It's the idea. It's the idea there are places in the world that are absent of godliness. And the Jewish people that generation paved the way for every future generation to introduce godliness to a place that's totally void of godliness, of Torah. So when you go to a place where there's no Jewish people, and you're proud, you wear your yarmulke, and you put on your tefillin, and you keep your kosher, you're a Jew in the desert. Exactly the same. So now knowing knowing this gives us a whole different approach to life. Now sometimes we could see the silver lining of why these negative things happen. You understand, right? If this hadn't happened, then we wouldn't have this, right? Sometimes we see it. Sometimes we're left to ask why. We don't get it. You know, the Rebbe spoke about going back to the beginning of the class, the Holocaust. The Rebbe said some people have an answer for this and an answer for that. He said all your answers fall short. Some people answer, the Jewish people were sinners in Germany, right? Say, but why did all the what happened? What are all the religious people in Poland, right? The Rebbe goes through some answers. Basically, we don't know. Sometimes in life, we get the privilege of seeing why these. We have these. I read an article. I think it was on CNN. One of these fluff articles. People met by mistake in both backpackers. She was with her friend. He was with his friend, and they were delayed. Something happened, and they met, and they lived happily ever after. They're married for like 40 years, right? Sometimes you can see the beginning and the end, and sometimes you can't see. So now going back to one of the questions we asked, how did the Rebbe maintain this positive view? Was the Rebbe a naive person? Even though the Rebbe went through all these terrible pogroms and the Bolshevik Revolution and displacement, Rebbe had to run away from World War I, had to run away from communism, had to run away from the Nazis, all that. How do you have this belief in Mashiach? So, because he says, you see text number 11, this is what the Rebbe wrote in the letter. He wrote it to, I forgot who the letters to. It's to a famous, I think, professor. He says, from the time I was a child attending Cheder, and even earlier, a vision of the final future redemption of the Jewish people from their final exile began to take shape. A redemption of such magnitude that through it, and this is the most important second line of paragraph 2, the purpose of the suffering's harsh decrees and anguish of the exile will be understood. It will take place in a manner that we will be able to say with a full heart, a complete understanding. So this is what the Rebbe said. Everything that happens is to serve a purpose. Everything. And not that it's going to serve a purpose later. It's productive now. It's true that it's hard. And it's true that it's uncomfortable. And we pray that we should never experience such things. But ultimately, we know, because again, everything God does it serves a constructive reason. Now we can get back and understand about the month of Av. The month of Av, which have all these terrible things happen. Right? And like a guy in Shul said today, you can't sing. You have to be miserable. I once heard someone say Chassidim, we don't know how to do Tisha B'Av. We're not experts in that field. Simchas Torah is our yom tov. You want to know how to do Av. You go to other communities. This is their expertise. The Rebbe says that we enter the time of year that reminds us of the profound challenges of exile. We can't allow ourselves to despair, God forbid. Rather, we must know that this is all the sole purpose of remaking and transforming the bitter exile into a series of journeys and ascents. The Jewish people were in the desert 40 years, and they're uncomfortable, right? And sometimes in a journey, you're uncomfortable. You don't have all the pleasures of home, but you're working toward a purpose. We must therefore increase our excitement, brightness, and enthusiasm during this time. This will illuminate the time of year and highlight the journeys in a sense that are only possible during this time. It will usher in the most important journey, one that will transform these days into days of festivity, joy, happiness, and speedily in our days. If we approach the whole world, if we approach life and our mission, that God has us here for a reason, and is to turn absence into fulfillment, then a whole different point of view. Key points. I'll list it off because we don't have a screen. Life is a continuous journey from birth to passing. Every day we grow in certain areas, making ourselves and the world better, holier. Vacations and relaxings are not goals. They're for gathering strength, fueling up for the continuing journey. When we find meaning in suffering, it ceases to be suffering. It gives us strength to survive. Now, survival is not enough. Suffering is meant to make us thrive in ways that we cannot have otherwise achieved. We must seek and seize these opportunities and transform our suffering into goodness. And finally, even when we cannot find that goodness, knowing that it is there helps. Because ultimately, I was telling this gentleman I was learning with yesterday, you're never going to find the answer to all the questions. You're always going to have questions. Some things are just not going to add up. But knowing that it's there helps. Knowing that we will see it when Mashiach comes helps even more. This is how we continue to believe in Mashiach, even in the harshest of circumstances. Larry, do you do the honors of